Hello everyone. My name is Solomon Elua, and this assignment is titled Celebrating the Journey. In this assignment, I'll be talking about how I started my social work journey, the impact of my BSW learning, and what I aspire to do in the nearest future. I would want to identify with the fact that when I started my PSW career, I was actively a micro level social work practitioner at the time. I was a crisis intervention worker, and part of my task include having intake and conducting assessments for clients, one-on-one clients. It was something that I really had passion for, and that inspired me to go and study about social work. Starting the PSW journey was quite interesting because I was beginning to. I think the most important part for me was I was able to understand how theories affect social work practice. The theories I was learning about in school were making more sense, what was giving more sense to my daily practice, so the approaches that I was using at work at the time. And it has really been a great experience for me. One of the few theories I know that I was actively using when I started my career into social work practice was the feminist theory and anti-oppressive theories. Of course, I didn't understand the appropriate terminologies at the time, but I knew that working as a crisis intervention worker in a shelter that caters for women fleeing domestic violence, I would be leaning onto such theories a whole lot. I was also looking at the client as the victim, so I was using a whole lot of anti-oppressive theories. I was also using, which was most important, I was using the strength theories, because one of the things I would want clients to realize is that they have power to control the dynamics of how their life will turn out, because they end up at the shelter regardless of where they came from. Doesn't change the course of their life, doesn't mean that's the end of the road. As a matter of fact, I always made a note to inform them that taking the bold step to flee domestic violence is actually the first step towards a new chapter in their life. So using those theories that I came to learn about, and understanding that that's what I've been practicing, began to inspire me to learn more about other theories and practice model I could use to better my job. And one of the things that I learned real quick was the narrative approach. So as an intake worker, I started learning excuse me. I started learning that in order to promote self-actualization, in order to not sound like the experts in the room, in order to give the client a level of self-dependency, it's very important that I let them gain control of the narrative. I balance the power dynamic, and I let them actually hold the bigger part of the narrative. So what I started doing after I learned about the narrative theory was to allow clients do more of the talking, and then I just throw in secondary questions that would probably prompt them to provide more information about the circumstance, or provide clarity to some of the things that they were trying to express if they were not using the right words. So I was doing lots of rephrasing, but I made sure that they control the narration, and it also helped them. It helped to give them a sense of clarity at the end of the conversation. That was a turning point for me when I understood that actually clients feel like social workers are the experts and they hold the solutions to everything. And I started looking for more ways I could make clients understand that you actually hold the narrative. I'm just here as a catalyst in your journey. I'm just here as a resource guide. I'm just here to listen to you. The answers to which to the questions you are asking, you have the answers. You are just not focused on them. So the narrative approach really helped me to better my interaction with the clients. And also one very important thing that I found very useful was also the impact and the guidance of the ACSW Code of Ethics. Most people just that I have interacted with prior to getting into school, they just look like they would always tell me as a resource guide that is just there like a constitution. But the ACSW Code of Ethics is actually way more than that. It's actually a moral code, is an ethical code. It's your personal guide as to how you would practice as the social worker that they expect you to be, the social worker that you would also inspire to be, the social worker that has the qualities of genuine empathy, the social worker that has the drive to want to see clients succeed. So I used to lean on to the code of ethics a whole lot. And one of the things that I was always excuse me, one of the things that I was always aware of was my social location. So I came into this country a couple of years ago as an immigrant from Africa. So the first thing I was able to recognize, excuse me, the first things I was able to recognize were my oppressions, were the way the society had boxed us into a corner based on our skin color, based on our level of education, based on those were all I could see. The course of the BSW program made me realize that I was only focused on my oppression. I was never focused on my privilege. I was still in the country. I was in a country that, yes, there was this general stereotype against black people, but black people are not the only stereotyped people in Canada. As a matter of fact, I wasn't looking at my privilege as a man, because while I was in oil and gas, before I moved to social work, oil and gas is a male-dominated industry. That's a general stereotype against women, regardless of their race. So I started focusing on understanding the intersectionality of oppression. That was one learning course or module I did during the course of my BSW that made me started looking at things from a different perspective. That instead of focusing on my oppression or how I'm being oppressed by the system, I should actually focus on my privilege, use the power I have as a professional, as whatever privilege I may hold on to, use that power to fight against injustice, use that power to fight to promote equality, use that power to promote equity and fairness on all classes. And I started understanding a few things about how my social location could be a point for me to just self-reflect. And it was very good for me, because whenever I come into an ethical dilemma, I always try to remind myself that I'm not leaning onto my moral understanding, I'm not leaning onto my cultural understanding. I have to lean onto what the code of ethics actually says as a social worker. And if after reading the code of ethics I still find myself in that quagmire, the first thing I want to do is to debrief with a supervisor who is also an expert, lean onto their experience, or try to remove myself from that situation so that the case might be assigned. I've been in a couple of situations like that as an only male that worked in a women's shelter. I've been in situations where I was uncomfortable to actually do an assessment or do an intake or even have a counseling session with a female, just because of certain circumstances that were in play at the time. And I actually leaned on to those resources. I debriefed with my manager and she was able to help me with those steps. So it was a relief when I got to a stage in my BSW program and I realized that, yes, ethical dilemmas are a thing. It's not just something in my head. Bias are a thing. it's normal to have bias. There is no written code for how everyone should behave. It's okay to have bias, but what should always be sacrosanct is that whenever you find yourself in these situations, you always have like the standard of practice and the code of ethics to always fall back to as your resource. So my social location and my social work identity, I've tried to keep them parallel but very close to each other, because for every time I'm interacting with a client, I always try to understand that one of the easiest things for me to do to learn about diversity, to understand that whoever is talking to me is not talking to me based on my skin color. It's talking to me because I'm a human being. So it's a give and take. So as much as they are willing to listen to me, I should be able to return that same courtesy to them. So it kind of like opened my eyes as to how life should be, not just even as a social worker, as a person. Like it's it shaped my way of thinking. And I would always be happy to tell anybody social work is not just a career, it's a way of life. The social work degree, the social work practice, it's just a professional tag. If we look at it from community building, from looking out for your neighbors, like there are some social work tenets that everybody does unconsciously, but as a professional social worker, I think it has, my BSW program has helped me a whole lot. And one aspect that I would also want to like look at is how um, how I decided to transit into macro level social work, because while I was doing my BSW, I've always practiced as a micro social worker, and I realized that I could do more with the level of passion I have on the macro level. I want to work with groups of people. I want to advocate for lots of people. I want to, I think my voice would do better on a larger scale. I really do not want to sit at top level policy writing, but I want to actually be the person that actually gives them the wake up call that, okay, based on research, based on statistics, there is an inequity in certain areas of the community. I want to be that person. And I would also interact with groups, I would also interact with individuals to get my research materials. It's something that I've always, like, I think I'm beginning to get passionate about. The strategies I want to incorporate into improving and reflecting on my practice is just my practicum has given me an opportunity to um, reach out to lots of organizations, see the wonderful things that lots of social work organizations or human services organizations are doing, and I've been able to see where social workers fit into these places. There's no quote unquote social work organization, but there are lots of places where there's a need for a social workers to actually come as either a resource or as a professional. So I have seen that there's so much work I could do on that level, and that's where I want to actually continue my partnership with. So I would do as many partner projects. I would continue to focus on research based projects, because the benefit of research based projects for me is that it gives me first hand information as to what's happening in my immediate community. And if I was to do a broad based research, I would also have first-hand information as to what's going on with the demography, because I will be taking sample size from that demography. That gives me the opportunity to actually learn something, give me something that I could speak about, advocate about, and come from an informed place when I'm talking about these things. So I'd want to stick to that for my continuous improvement. One thing that I also want to talk about is the impact of my classroom um, classroom experience during my PSW program. I do not, it's highly, it's an understatement if I say I don't take it lightly, because I was in a classroom with different people from different walks of life, with different age groups, with different experiences, and no one knew where I was coming from. No one knew my background. Everybody just came with their wealth of knowledge. The instructors were wonderful, but I think it was very important for me in shaping my decision as to how I would pursue my social work career to actually listen to the experience of people that decided to come back as students. I had people that have been working in the human service sector for 20 years, 22 years, 17 years, and here I was just 3 years into social work practice, and I felt like I have done a lot. So listening and contributing in class was one of the most effective ways to get first time first hand um, information about things that I have not experienced. So I was asking questions about people's experiences and they were giving me direct feedback. I was doing follow up. I interacted with quite a number of my colleagues, and I interacted with quite a number of my instructors, and the wealth of knowledge that I got from my classroom participation alone cannot be overemphasized. Some of the things that I have read in textbook, some of the assignments I had done based on research, writings, and whatnot, were nothing compared to my classroom discussions. They were nothing compared to the questions I asked. So, have there been a time when you experienced this at your workplace? And someone would tell me I had been in a position to travel to a rural location with a client just once in my experience, but I was able to get a better understanding of rural social work practice when I spoke to a few of my classmates that were in remote locations and they were practicing. I needed to understand what their obstacles were, what the benefits were. Like, there was just a whole lot I was gaining from these people. So I do not take it with a pinch of salt. Like, that was like, I think I would want to say that's like my biggest learning portal. Like, the experience I got from my colleagues was a great influence to the kind of social work I want to be. Like I told a colleague of mine, I said, to be honest, if I'm not doing community social work in Edmonton, I want to travel somewhere and just practice in a rural community, because there's so much work that needs to be done in the grassroots level. There are so much interventions that are not kickstarted. There are lots of intervention projects that are out there, but there are not enough social workers to carry them out. I want to do as much as I can, not because of the money that is there, but because I'm genuinely passionate about this. And there's nothing that speaks well to a career than when you do what you love and you enjoy it. Like, there's no other satisfaction that comes out of a career than that. Um, as to directions for future learning, I am greatly considering applying for my MSW program. It's something that I was skeptical about, but after speaking to a few of my instructors and a few colleagues, I think it actually wouldn't do any harm if I actually make the application. I think it would be great for me to harness the relationship I've built between my instructors and some of my colleagues to actually go in right now. There's a wealth of resource that I could be introduced to while doing this program. So it's something that I'm really considering for now while I work either part-time or full-time until I start my MSW program. As for emerging strengths, I think the gift I bring to the social work profession is just my passion. I know that I am very passionate about it. Everybody that knew me back in the day, they assumed I was going through a midlife crisis. Why would anybody leave oil and gas that pays well, pays all the bills, to social work that barely pays anything? And in a way, I had no doubts. I knew I was going to the right path because I felt the satisfaction of going to work every day and knowing that I'm impacting somebody's life. That's something money can't buy. That's satisfaction that you can't get anywhere else. Like, that's the biggest level of customer service you can do. You know that every client that walks through the door, every intake, every assessment, every crisis call you take, you are changing somebody's life by the second. I don't think there's any other reward I could ask for, because it gives me peace of mind. It makes me know that I am actually valuable. I don't need anybody to tell me that you are valuable. What I'm doing is very valuable, and that drives my passion. And I think I'm probably out of time. I would want to round up here. I would want to send my deep appreciation to all my instructors. I would want to thank my colleagues who had shared their experience and helped me in building a better, or inspiring me to have a clearer vision for my social work career. And to be honest, I really want to continue in this part where, and I hope to get to a part where I'm able to like speak to people that were once in my position where they didn't know the direction they wanted to go to. And I think I'll leave it at that. Thank you.